All right, Lights, Camera, Barstool, movie review time. Jeff D-Low, Ken Jack,
Yo.
Gooch,
What
coming
up?
at you. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button. Helps us out with videos. And subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Know we're going to be dropping videos and reviews. A lot more stuff on this channel moving forward, so please do that to help us out. We're talking DC. Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle Battalion. The Blue Beetle. The Blue Wave is sweeping the country.
The Great Blue Wave.
The Great Blue Wave of $24 million it made at the box office. Didn't perform great, but DC's next movie, the last movie, second to last movie before the James Gunn era, because they got Aquaman coming out, I guess.
Well, this is technically the first of the James Gunn era.
That's right, first, but like last of the not. Like, it's weird. Anyway, Blue Beetle. Here's a synopsis. Jaime Reyes suddenly finds himself in possession of an ancient alien relic, biotechnology called the Scarab. When the Scarab chooses Jaime to be its symbiotic host, he's bestowed with an incredible suit of armor that's capable of extraordinary and unpredictable powers, forever changing his destiny as he becomes the superhero Blue Beetle. DC's this character's been around for 100 years. It's been around forever, but not on the big screen like this. Obviously very similar to Spider-Man, Venom, that type of thing in the Marvel side of things. The lead role, Zolo Mariduana, who is in Cobra Kai, I believe. I'm not a big Cobra Kai watcher, but that is what people recognize him from. Adriana Barraza, Damian Alcazar, El Padilla Carrillo, and then a couple names that many will recognize. Susan Sarandon playing one of the villains, and George Lopez of sitcom and many other things, comedic fame in this movie, in a pretty awesome role, I must know. This movie, we'll start off with some of our initial thoughts and our scores here. This movie, I think, has been roasted for quite a while. The marketing was really cringeworthy. Painting the steps or putting, posters in the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum where Rocky once stood.
Yeah, the Blue Beetle steps.
taking from Barbie.
Wait,
anyway,
can we stop for a second? Because I expected in the movie at one point for the steps to come into play.
Or
they just took over the.
America is not even addressed as a country.
No, it's not at all. Anyway, it's set in. Anyway, I'll give my score, and then we'll get more into the details. No spoiler thoughts here. We'll get into spoilers when we get into our pros and cons of the movie. But I thought this was far better than anyone expected, including ourselves. Again, we kind of laughed at the idea of this movie. It's like, oh god, another dumpy DC movie that no one's going to watch. I had quite a good time with this. I think I had far better everything than I expected. It's a fun movie. It feels independent and more on its own and not reliant on the rest of DC, like at all. And that's what I think makes it feel a little fresher and a little more of like you can kind of breathe without having to like worry about Easter eggs and connections. And were you guys waiting for the Wonder Woman guitar riff to happen at any point in the movie?
Very surprised. Never got that.
I know a couple of reviews have joked about it. Like, you don't see her, you don't see Aquaman. There's no Barry Allen flying in. It's a fun family story. It has definitely some flaws. I think it could have gone in a more of a hardened, unique direction to make this kind of separate itself. But man, this is a good time. I can't say anything too bad about it. I gave it an 81. I walked out of this and I went, man, that was fun. It was a good time. It's not going to blow your fucking mind, but it's well made. It's got some heart. I enjoyed it. So 81 out of 100 Blue Beetle for me. Ken Jack.
Yeah, I think that like one of the big things that all the movies since James Gunn has taken over have had, they all have like a certain level of expectations because they are either characters that we knew or it had name recognition. Like Black Adam came out right before he took over. That has like The Rock. Shazam 2 had a built-in audience. Zach Levi, Ezra Miller with The Flash and all the hype behind that. And Aquaman will have Momoa. But like this really didn't have any expectations. Like the biggest star of the movie is like a dead tie between Susan Sarandon and George Lopez. Like, that's not, like, giant name brand quality people. So, and Blue Beetle isn't either. The character is just not that level for regular people that aren't into the comic book world. So, I think those, like, really low expectations helped this movie a ton because it was able to create sort of its own little mini universe that isn't connected to any of this shit, like you were saying, Jeff, and kind of, like, let I think Zolo shine as this sort of like Peter Parker type hero. And I think just kind of like was able to like make like a very charming little movie. You know what I mean? Not a movie where I'm going to say, "Hey, Blue Beetle's out. Make sure you go take your friends to go see it." This is like the Dark Knight 2.0. No, it's nothing like that. But it is a movie that I will safely say, if you are looking for a reliable, a safe movie to go watch with your family, with a date, whatever, you could definitely go watch Blue Beetle, and no one is going to be disappointed. You're not going to leave the theater saying that sucks. You're going to leave the theater saying like that was a fun, entertaining superhero movie, and it was enjoyable. And I feel bad because it probably isn't going to have a big place in the DC, but it doesn't hurt your enjoyment of it too much.
So wait, what was your score? Does Brian did score?
I'm probably like a 71. I'm happy with.
This aligns with Shazam for me, by the way. It's right on par with Shazam for me. But Palmyra City, by the way, which was just St. Martin, right? Like it was like the plane flying over the beach, landing really close. Like that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, 71 from Ken Jack. Gooch.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Shazam because I'm right at the level of Shazam too. I think it has a lot of similarities to Shazam. I'm at a 70. Where it's just, it is a family movie. Like it is not targeted at young adults or even adults. It's made for kids for the most part. The humor is very much targeted at children. So I had to keep that in mind while I'm watching it. And it took me a second to realize that. I was like, oh, this is very corny. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like if I was an 11-year-old, I would think a beetle farting everywhere would be the funniest thing ever. And like George Lopez's little quips and Nana having a gun, like all that stuff would be very funny to me. I think it's a good start for DC, especially nailing that casting. I think Zolo, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Zolo is very charismatic. I don't know if he's like an award-winning actor, but you don't need to be in these comic book roles. You just need to be extremely charismatic, likable, a hero that people can root for. And I think they nailed that. Jeff said there's a lot of problems here. There are a lot of problems. I think you maybe leaned a little too hard into the family storylines, not just the relationship to his family, but individual family members. Like maybe a little too much of Nana, a little too much of the sister, where you could have really just focused on his relationship to his dad. I think that was the most compelling of them all.
Okay.
And not gotten so sidetracked there. But outside of that, I mean, this is just a very enjoyable movie, or at least an enjoyable movie as far as comic book movies go. Has heart. There's really not a ton to complain about if you know what you're getting into.
So where you throw it on the score meter?
70.
70. Yeah. So that's a positive review. So we'll start with pros. And these will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen Blue Beetle, I would skip now or just come back to this video after you see it. But let's start off with pros for the movie, since we lean more on the positive side. I would agree. I think the biggest standout is Zolo Mariduana as Blue Beetle. I think he is like magnetic. He leaps off screen. You connect with him obviously the most. He's a main character and he's a believable hero in like a comic book universe. And I worry that he's not like, I really hope they take this movie, which is not it's performing towards, I watched Dan Murrell break this down earlier today. I think he said it was in the box office on his YouTube video saying it's kind of on the lower end of expectations, made about 24 million, 25 million. So it's not performing in a way that I'm assuming they're going to say, pump these out now into the Blue Beetle verse, do it all. Like, no, I think there's a chance we don't see him again in this role, which would be a bummer because I hope they find a way to make him fit in because I think he's really awesome in the role. He was the biggest surprise for me outside of the fact that I thought George Lopez would be terrible, and I love George Lopez in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
He was way better than I expected. Lopez? Because like, the only clip we saw, was hit. The only clip we saw was him doing the fascist Batman line, which we thought was going to be like that's the vibe of his entire character. But he was pretty funny. I like conspiracy weirdo sort of uncle character.
I did like the way they wrote that character. Like that is funny. Like a crazy uncle that always plays. Like doesn't matter if you're Mexican, you're white. Like you got a crazy uncle. Everybody's got one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like a lot of these comic book movies, that is a big part of it too. It's like, especially the more origin side of things. This is an origin story, which I'll get more into. I think at least I will in the cons. I'm sure you guys might as well. Like it hits a lot of those tropes, but like there is always that character, you know, in Iron Man, there's the Pepper Potts. In Spider-Man, there is the Tony, who is essentially an uncle. There is Aunt May. Like you have that character. And I think Lopez serves that purpose there. And the family stuff in general is great. And I think, much like, we talk about representation. That's a big thing with this movie. And that's what people are saying, for the Latin community, this is something that people are really excited about. But that's why things like Black Panther, even like when Ms. Marvel was at its good parts, right? Like, when you infuse maybe a story in a type of movie that is familiar, but you bring in like a different culture and a different vibe and a different feel, it can really spice things up and spruce it up. And that's what I think is a huge part of why this worked for me, is that it felt different. Yeah, it maybe structurally is not much different than anything that we've ever seen, but it felt like a different type of movie in the comic book space, which I think made it much better. I think that was a big reason why I liked it.
Yeah. It was like sort of like the Latino Spider-Man origin, basically, except it's you're just, instead of a spider, it's a beetle, and it turns you into an Iron Spider.
It's the Iron Spider. Yeah,
yeah.
I like the family stuff too. Like the family stuff, I thought that's where I thought that's the family stuff.
That's where like the most like the unique quality of the movie comes in, is that like level of integration of all the different kooky characters, whatever you want to call it, which is also what makes it such a good, I think, kids movie. You know what I mean? Where like any kid can kind of like, I guess unless you're adopted or something. Apologies to any orphans out there, but there's I think a quality that anyone can enjoy. Anyone can enjoy in Blue Beetle in the goofy big family.
Orphans will hate this movie.
Orphans will despise this. Hey, I think Jaime, pull that up real quick.
I think the family. I think you made a good point too, Rob. I think maybe like hyper focusing more on certain aspects of the family would have helped it along the way. But I do think that was the best part of the movie. Like that, which is what surprised me, because I again would have only assumed from trailers and marketing that might have been the corniest and worst part. Where you're like, oh my god, watching him transform, talking with the George Lopez stuff, the comic with the fascist Batman. But it was the exact opposite. That was the better stuff of the entire movie. I thought the humor worked fine. I worry. My first thought was so negative. I was like, man, we may never see that guy again, which is a bummer because he was really fun in that role. He Zola Maradona as Jaime Reyes is like, I hope that's someone. And these weirder characters, or at least this character's been around forever. These ones that mainstream audiences aren't as used to are the ones that James Gunn thrives with, though, right? Like he is good with these types of characters. So maybe the performance won't matter as much for him. Though I guess the Warner Brothers will have the fucking Discovery while they're saying that.
Oh,
but
great.
I hope they can find a lane for him here, because I do think that this is a character that can work.
You guys did see the post credit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I missed it. Well, you guys, please do tell me.
It's nothing serious. I guess we're not really in a spoiler section, are we?
No, we are. We can spoil it. Yeah.
It's just they go down to that suit that was on like a naked mannequin, and you hear, I guess, Jenny Cord's dad through like the computers in that secret layer that she has. So, I mean, they did set up a sequel. Who knows if we'll see that? I will say, though,
you kind of have to. I feel like you need to at least do it, because then it's like, like put foot to the fire. Like, well, we set it up. You got to make it.
The character. Did you guys ever watch Young Justice, the animated series?
Yeah.
Did not. No.
So they did introduce Blue Beetle in that series, and he ended up becoming immediately a crowd favorite for people who watch the show. And they started adding way more of his storyline into the series. So maybe that happens here too, where people, see Blue Beetle and they're like, hey, I actually really like this character. I want more of him. Hopefully it does well at like, home streaming purchases there. I'm sure that'll be the deciding factor on whether or not they go forward with it.
Right.
Because
how it does on Max. And
very curious how Shazam 2 did on HBO Max. Like that, just the streaming numbers on that compared to other stuff.
Cannot be good.
What they should do is they should get the rights to Suits, and then an episode of Suits auto plays into Blue Beetle.
Zolo in the reboot of Suits and George Lopez. There's your pitch for rebooting Suits.
The director of the movie, who also did a movie called Charm City Kings, by the way, did mention for that role of Ted Cord, his dream would be Jason Sudeikis, which would be kind of fun. That'd be a fun. That's an actor I could see fitting into like this type of movie well, and to like a James Gunn DC universe.
Listen. Good looking guy, Jason Sudeikis. He's never going to have a daughter that looks like Bruna Mark, whatever her name is. That's one of the hottest people I've seen in a movie in forever. She was so hot. We gotta bring it up. So hot.
Certainly was.
Those are pros.
By the way, just talking about the Kurds, I wanted, if you wanted to mention, or what was their last name? The Kurds, not the Kurds. The Corns?
Cords.
The bad guys?
Cords.
That was the biggest weakness.
The Kurds sounds like a villain in the Crudes.
Yeah. That was I think as far as cons go, that was the weakest part, is that the Susan Sarandon stinker performance for her.
Oh, I did. Well, that's a good segue for the cons of the movie now. Do we think, because there were kind of two villains,
Neither of
though
which are
again,
very
spoilers,
good,
one does like the classic heel turn, right? Where it's like they were manipulated and they kind of turn on them. But I did like that villain. I enjoyed, honestly, quite a bit. The Carpax villain, the was really just like a suit guy. It's like another suit man.
It's the Jeff Bridges suit. It's the Jeff Bridges big
Yeah. But no, I like that character. I would have preferred that to be kind of the main focus villain rather than Susan Sarandon, who I don't think was horrible, but I have no like.
She's impressionless.
Like doesn't do much.
That was like, hey, here's your corporate bad guy. You're gonna hate her because she's the corporate bad guy, and it's like, well, just make her more hateable. Like, act more hateable. Do something more hateable.
Right? She wasn't hateable enough. I'm glad you said that. I don't think she was nearly villainous enough for that role.
Yeah,
she sucks, but like,
yeah, you need more evil actors. I don't know. Just needed some juice.
She became more of like a bottom line villain, right? Like it was more about making the dough. It's like it could have been better, because I did like the other villain more, but then again, you get the heel turn, so it's not really like a true villain.
You need more juice. I do play a villain. You know what I mean? You need to have like some like real, I don't know, a better vibe.
I think the biggest con though is probably that it is just a run of the mill in terms of structure. It's a run of the mill origin story.
Yeah, no, it's super simple, which helps it in certain ways in the pros, right? Where it's like, hey, we're not doing anything crazy. We're not trying to loop this with 15 other things, whatever. It's very simple, which is great and also bad, because there's like literally not one aspect of this movie you cannot predict. Like if you've watched any comic book movies before, like you'll predict every single step, almost every single line of this movie, which again isn't totally a bad thing, because it's refreshing compared to it being executed sloppily versus being executed well here. So it hurts and helps.
Exactly. I think the simplicity helps. And that goes back to me saying, like, it just is targeted at a younger audience, which, simple storylines work for them. How do we definitely go ahead?
I'll say it definitely helps, but it definitely get it constricted from really reaching any other height. That is the thing. Yeah. It's like it is so what we've seen that no matter how hard you try to block that out, it's kind of tough. But go ahead, Gooch.
Yeah. How do we feel about it, like, visually? Because at points, I do think it looks fantastic. Like the suit itself. I think using that practical suit on set made a huge difference. Instead of
Which is crazy that, could you imagine if someone had told you, hey, by the way, Blue Beetle's going to look light years better than the Flash.
Yeah. Like just, and I know like they had more CGI they had to do in the Flash, which makes it more difficult and all that. But like it was leagues better than it made it look like it was like a homeschool project. That's how bad it was in the Flash compared to Blue Beetle.
And I really loved that the end fight, the Raimi reference of the half torn mask with, his face popping out of it. Like that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think again, it's not even like there's too many things that are like objectively bad about the movie or subjectively bad that you could say that like, that's terrible. Like that ruined it. It's just that I think I always reference the movie. I always say it's the Godzilla versus Kong paradox type thing, where it's like it can only be as good as it can be. Like I don't think it can be. This can't be Logan. This can't be Spider-Verse. It can't be, like it's just not going to get to that level because they did make it rather simple. I think if there's one thing I definitely would have changed, though, it could have been a little, I think, darker and more sinister, and that's what we kind of said with the villain, right? Like, I think it could have had a bit of a darker tone and twist to it, which I think wouldn't have been that hard to reach. Like I think it was there. I think the option to make it a dark movie is there. Like the stuff surrounding the family and like their hardships is like, you could have made it a significantly more, it doesn't need to be like a negative like slog, but you could have made it a little darker in that sense.
It felt like they were heading that direction at one point too, when the, I don't know if they're like government agents or the military group raided their house. and like rounded it up, and it was almost like an allegory for ice. I'm pretty sure it was very intentionally set up that way, and it did feel like they were going to go that direction, and then they kind of just pulled back immediately from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But these movies, I don't think they all need to say anything or anything like that. I just it needs to be executed. Oh, it's all about execution. Because again, it can be as simple as fucking possible. It does not matter as long as it's executed well, and they did that here.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Gooch.
Bruna, what's up? I'm just kidding. This just go see it if you're a comic book movie fan. I do think you'll enjoy this. Or if you have kids, take them out to see it. They'll enjoy it too. Otherwise, this is a movie you can probably wait to watch at home. You don't need to rush to the theater. It's not going to change the genre, but it's enjoyable for what it is. I was pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm. Good family or date.
Ken, Jack, final thoughts?
It's a really good family or date movie. Like, again, not Dark Knight or anything like that, but very good for, cruising on through if you want a nice night at the movies.
Yeah, I'd say it might feel very familiar to other origin stories. Definitely hampers it from being anything great. Blue Beetle is a good time. It's a lot of fun. It's got some heart. It's got people in it who care about the subject matter, and that always makes it better than just the medium average CGI shit fest like The Flash. So I would definitely go see Blue Beetle if you get a chance to go to the movies. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Gooch, Kendrick, I'm Jeff D'Lo. We'll talk to you next time here on Lights Camera Barstool.